Joining me now is Peter Schweizer, president of the Government Accountability Institute and author of Blood Money: Why the Powerful Turn a Blind Eye While China Kills Americans, his most recent book. Peter, thanks so much for coming on the program. I want to talk to you about another book you've written in 2020 called Profiles in Corruption: Abuse of Power by America's Progressive Elite, which details, among other things, what you believe is Kamala Harris's corruption as a public prosecutor. Give us an overview here, especially for Australians who may not be familiar with the Kamala Harris story and whether she really was as tough-talking a prosecutor as she claims now that she's running for president.
Yeah, she was tough on some people, but certainly not on people in positions of power. People are probably familiar with the fact that Kamala Harris had a romantic relationship with Willie Brown, who became the mayor of San Francisco. What a lot of people don't realize is that her entrance into politics in 2003, when she ran for the San Francisco District Attorney office, was shepherded by Willie Brown. At the time, Willie Brown was the mayor.
Tell us a bit about who Willie Brown was here, because I think people hear the name Willie Brown, and we need to get a little bit of background on this.
Yeah, no, great point. Willie Brown had been the Speaker of the California Assembly. He became the mayor of San Francisco. He was under, by some reporting, more than a dozen investigations by the FBI on corruption charges. And he certainly carried that into San Francisco. And the problem that he faced in 2003 was that several of his closest friends were under investigation by the then San Francisco District Attorney, a guy named Terrence Hallinan. And these involved all kinds of serious corruption allegations. Hallinan was also investigating some institutions in San Francisco that were close to the Catholic Church, including St. Ignatius School, a very prestigious Catholic prep school. This was when the priest abuse scandal was developing in the United States. These forces did not want these investigations to go forward. Willie Brown and individuals connected to those Catholic institutions essentially bankrolled Kamala Harris's campaign in 2003. She beat Terrence Hallinan. Once she became the San Francisco District Attorney, she dropped all of those cases in dramatic fashion. So 3 of Willie Brown's friends who had been under the gun, who were facing charges under Terrence Hallinan, had those charges dismissed. In the case of the priestly abuse scandal, this is particularly interesting because her reputation, her self-stated reputation, is that she protects victims of sexual abuse. In this case, her predecessor, Terrence Hallinan, was looking at bringing charges. He had collected some 300 to 400 pages of internal church documents that talked about abuse cases. He was working with victims groups to redact those documents and released them to the public. Kamala Harris did not prosecute a single case in California of priestly abuse, and those documents literally disappeared. Terrence Hallinan had them when she became the San Francisco District Attorney. They were disappeared to never be found again. And victims' rights groups in San Francisco to this day are still very upset with her because they believe she covered up for these abusers.
And you say that the church and people connected with the church were giving money to her campaign. It's shocking stuff, but this is part of a bigger pattern, you say, of how Kamala uses personal relationships to leverage herself into higher and higher positions of power. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so when she becomes the California Attorney General, the chief law enforcement officer in California, she develops this reputation of going after, big companies on fraud charges, on environmental, claims of environmental law violations, et cetera. Then there's a case brought to her attention involving 6 nutrition supplement companies in California. They're already under investigation by the Department of Justice in Washington, D.C. They're also under investigation by the U.S. Federal Trade Commission, and her office in San Diego develops a case and says, we need to prosecute these companies for false claims and fraud because they're based in California. Kamala Harris, the Attorney General, completely out of character, says, no, we are not going to investigate this. She shuts it down. It turns out later, lo and behold, that all 6 of those companies are represented by a law firm where her new husband at that time, Doug Emhoff, is the managing partner. And there are numerous other examples of her sort of selective embrace of the law. In other cases, there was a nonprofit hospital chain in California that wanted to sell its assets to another nonprofit chain in California because they couldn't afford to run the hospital anymore. But that new nonprofit did not want the service employees union to unionize. They said they couldn't afford to have that happen. Kamala Harris squelched that deal, prevented this nonprofit from taking over this hospital. Instead, she approved the deal with a hedge fund in New York to take over that hospital chain. That new owner was willing to play with the Service Employees International Union, allow them to unionize, but unfortunately they dramatically reduced services in the area. The point being is that it hurt the residents in the area, but it certainly benefited the Service Employees Union, which was, by the way, one of her biggest financial backers when she became Attorney General and also when she later ran for the United States Senate.
Peter Schweizer, thank you so much for your time. Everybody go out, buy his books. You're going to learn a lot. Thank you so much, Peter Schweizer.